Ladies and gentlemen, goobers and ghouls, dear listeners, welcome back to Fear Boners. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Fear Boners, presented by the Down in Front podcast. I am your host, Andrew, and I'm here tonight with two witches straight from Salem. I know I always use that to introduce you guys, and I know that neither of you are actually from Salem, but we do have our returning guests, our very favorite Maddox and Chrissy, here in the house. How are you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Can't complain. Maddox, how about you?
Doing great.
All right, and we got a silent contributor here in the studio. We have Dahlia, the hound dog, who's going to have some insightful commentary about the movies we're going to be talking about tonight. It is a very special night indeed, because we are going to be talking about Suspiria, both the original and the remake, and we will get into that, and we'll talk about, our impressions of both movies, whether we'd seen them before, and kind of just riff on that for a while in just a bit. But before we get into that, I'd just like to talk about, traditionally what we're drinking and what we've been watching. So let's start over here on our left. This is an auditory medium, so nobody's going to know that I'm pointing. But Chrissy, what have you got over there?
I have...
Did you see how I did that? I got you first, so I didn't have to admit to drinking it.
Yeah, you don't have to take responsibility. Okay, so I was banking on you telling everybody what you were drinking first. But I have to say that Abbott and I are both drinking Bud Light Lime right now.
That's true.
I don't know why. I have no explanation. I have nothing else to say about it. This is just what's happening.
It's part of some arcane ritual.
It's like college all over again.
There you go. You drink it and it helps you dance better.
That's what they say. Yeah, I'm trying to think what I've been watching. I just finished Russian Doll on Netflix.
Okay.
Have either of you seen it?
I've seen the first couple.
Yes, in the first 2 episodes.
A few people have recommended it to me. I like the first couple episodes a lot.
It's cool. I feel like it would have been better as just like if you kind of condensed the whole thing and it was just like a movie.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't think it needs to be stretched out quite as much as it is. And it's not something you want to watch a little bit of and then go back to necessarily. I feel like it's better received if you just experience it from beginning to end. So I think that would have made it better. But okay. The concept is cool. The only thing that kind of throws me off is that I feel like you have a bunch of movies like that kind of
Groundhog Day vibe.
Yeah, it was a Groundhog Day vibe, but also Happy Death Day just came out and another one is coming out, and it's basically the same exact premise as that, except it's not as kitschy as Happy Death Day. It's got a much more serious tone, but yeah, I think it's just weird timing. I'm not saying don't watch it. It's pretty good. It sucked me in, but I don't know if it lived up to all of the rave reviews that I've heard about it. Yeah.
Well, that's what I remember liking. The writing seemed real quick. It was pretty funny. But then as I eased into the second episode, I was like, oh shit, this is gonna get does it get more serious? Is it kind of more of a dramatic?
Yes.
But it stays kind of funny too.
I mean, the characters are just very witty.
Yeah.
The situation never gets light and funny, but the characters are funny people.
Okay.
So you have that going for you. But yeah, I would say plot-wise, it definitely gets a lot more psychological and dark. But the ending is surprisingly uplifting.
Okay.
I'll say that. But I also did have to go do a lot of reading after I finished it because I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
So I didn't even appreciate the ending so much until, like, after I had read about it for, like, a half hour. Which I don't know if that was the goal, that, like, you know, what they were going for. But, yeah. It's an interesting watch. I think everybody in it was really, really good.
I do really like the actress.
Yes.
I feel like this is the first time she's gotten, like, the lead role. I feel like she's usually the sarcastic, dry-witted best friend.
Yeah, she's like a character actor, I feel like.
She's really great when she does take the lead. I actually, when one of my friends at work recommended the show, I shot back with, and I think I recommended it to one of you guys at one point, but she had a movie come out last year, the year before, called Anti-Birth, where she basically goes to some crazy rager in a warehouse and, like, gets so drunk that she passes out and wakes up the next day and she's just full pregnant, ready to pop.
Oh my god.
And she has no idea what happened.
I don't think you told me about that.
It winds up being this, like, it's like crazy, over-the-top, gory, gross out, and she's full on the lead. It gets insane, and the end of the movie is just bonkers.
Yeah,
so,
I think
like,
you told me about that, but, like, I can't, like, pregnancy and childbirth freaks
you wouldn't,
me out,
you wouldn't,
so I'm just
That's,
going,
like, worst case scenario. That
it's pretty much, if that stuff,
stuff
gets you, that movie would definitely be a little too much.
I would die.
Yeah, there's some good belly button scenes.
Oh, why?
Maddox hates belly buttons, for context.
They're really gross.
Well, if you like a good gross belly button movie, watch Anti-Birth. Or if you don't want that, but you enjoy that actress, you can see Russian Dolls.
Yeah, there aren't very many belly buttons, from what I can remember, so I think you're good.
Well, so the one thing that my friend had also said was, she recommended, the show is Russian Dolls, right?
I don't know if it's plural or not now.
That's the thing that always confuses, because there is another show that's called Russian Dolls that's about, I think, escorts, and it's either a documentary or it's like a show about it. Yeah. And then the other show that we're talking about is the one that's Russian Doll, where the girl keeps dying and coming back to her birthday.
Right.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah.
I guess it's important to...
Yeah.
But Russian Doll is the one that just pops up on the main screen every time you turn on Netflix.
Because it's brand new.
Netflix is currently pushing it really hard.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, as we go around, I am also enjoying a Bud Light Lime. Just wanted to go with something a little bit lighter.
And limier.
I felt like I had a little bit of scurvy coming on, so I thought this might help with that. As for what I'm watching, I was mentioning it to you guys before we started recording, but I just watched Don't Knock Twice, which is apparently also recently added to Netflix, if I remember correctly. It's pretty good. It's an interesting, similar to a movie that I reviewed on the podcast recently called Witch in the Window. It's another witchy one where basically, instead of father and son, it's mother and daughter, but they're estranged. And they basically wind up getting time to bond over this weird urban legend where this creepy old woman lives in a house and you're not supposed to knock twice on her door. But of course the girl does, and wacky weirdness ensues. And it's actually, there's some definite creepy moments where some of the shots are really great. Like, she's wandering through a dark house and then you see the old lady, or you see like this other shape that you're not quite sure, but you find out later is this bizarre demon. They think it's the Baba Yaga for a while. Some of the things that are supposed to be twisty aren't really. As soon as the idea is broached in the plot of the movie, you're like, oh, this person's going to be a bad person. Or like, the person gets a necklace in the beginning of the movie and it's just random, but they really stress that scene and you're like, oh, this is going to come back at the end of the movie. You just know it's either going to save the day or it's going to be significant in some sort of way. But the jump scares are pretty good. Not really jumpy, but it ratchets up the tension pretty well. But some of the effects are sort of hammy. But other than what you were saying where Russian Dolls ends on like kind of a bright note, this movie actually has a pretty dark ending. Like, you think it's going to be okay, but it's not okay.
Does it make sense? Like, does the ending, do you feel like it ties it up? Because I feel like that can be a problem.
Yeah, because they kind of, I think it's only like an hour and a half long. It's like your standard horror movie, but they try to make this really in-depth, twisty-turny mystery at the same time. Because there's this other, like this side story of these disappearing kids, and first you think it's the old lady, then you think it's the witch, then you think it's the demon, then you think it's this other person, and then it comes back around and they shake it up a bit, and at the end you're like, oh shit, this is what it was the whole time. And that's pretty good. It throws you off its trail a few times with context clues and things like that, but then the twist at the end, you're just like, shit, alright, well, that's a bummer. But as far as standard Hollywood horror movies go, it's actually pretty good. So, if you got Netflix, you can watch Not the Witch in the Window.
Don't
knock twice. Yes, I got confused that because they're fairly similar. But yeah, if you liked one, then I'd recommend the other. But yeah, that's what I've been watching.
So I'm the only one not drinking Bud Light Lime.
You're doing a great job.
It's gross. I don't even know what I'm drinking, though, because I picked this up last week. I am drinking Exhibit A's 15, which is a double IPA.
Do you have to drink 15 of them?
I will probably die if I drink 15 double IPAs. And kind of complete opposite, watch-wise, what you guys have been watching. I told you earlier I finished season 2 of The Dragon Prince today. Ooh. So I was a huge fan of the Avatar. So I started watching this when season 1 came out, and I don't watch a ton of animated stuff, and I definitely don't watch a lot of like, kids animated stuff. It was really just the Avatar that like sucked me in. Mm-hmm. So I gave this one a chance, and I love dragons, so I was like, all right, this works. Like, I was sort of iffy on season 1. Like by the end, I was like, all right, I really enjoy this, but season 2 was really good. So if you're looking for a good animated show with a good story, The Dragon Prince is pretty good. I don't think it's quite at the level of the Avatar yet, but I also recently started rewatching the Avatar, and season 1 is pretty cheesy.
Yeah, I think I told you around the holidays I managed to snag that on Blu-ray, so I've been watching that for the first time ever, and it's really good. Like, the animation's really solid, and like I am enjoying the first season, but it is taking me a while. Like, it's not that one that I could like power through a bunch of episodes at once. The
story picks up, I think, a lot more like towards the end of the second season.
And now, what's the other one? Legend of Korra is like the follow-up.
Yeah, I ended up liking that one. I hated it after the first couple episodes, but then it grew on me. It's very different from Avatar and Dragon Prince. I think in part because they're teenagers and it's like really angsty and all that. But what has been cool is the level of progression of the diversity of characters in the show. You have some of that in Korra, but in like the Dragon Prince, there's like a bunch of characters that aren't white.
Because they're dragons.
So there's a bunch of like not white dragons. One of the main characters is deaf, and so she does like sign language. Like,
that's cool.
Oh, okay.
And what I enjoy is she'll have conversations with other characters, and they don't give you the subtitles for it, because they're basically like, "Fuck you! If you can read sign language, you're gonna get the joke. But if you don't, then you're not gonna
learn
get
real
it."
quick.
So I enjoy like the small stuff like that, and one of the characters has parents who are like lesbians, and they don't make a thing out of it, you know, they're not like, oh, it's so weird that she has 2 moms. They literally just like, oh yeah, you had 2 moms, they were awesome, and just move on. And
yeah.
I feel like Legend of Korra was trying a bit too hard to like
address
it, and then this one is like, we're just gonna make this the norm.
Yeah.
And so like it really like flows in the story, and it makes it more interesting. So yeah, not horror related at all, but I will probably be diving back into horror now that I'm done with it. So.
That's cool. Like, something from an animation perspective that I never thought about is having a character. Because you see a lot in, like, animated shows, people... Because one of the things that's kind of a pain in the ass is actually animating people's lip movements, is, like, lip-syncing the audio for the show itself. And so then not having that, but then having to do hands, right? Is, like, it's probably way harder. And that's what I wondered. Do you know, like, was it actual, like, ASL?
I think I looked it up, and I think it is. Because, like,
that's cool.
People have, like, commented on, like, the jokes that she says.
Yeah.
And they do a good job. Like, she still has her, like, body animation, like, her facial expressions, like, while she's signing, like, work really well. So the whole thing, I think they just did a really good job handling it and the way that she communicates with everyone else. And at no point does anyone in the series criticize her or make fun of her for being deaf and using language. It's just part of the thing. And she's, like, a military leader in it, so she's also a super badass fighter.
Okay.
Really cool. I'm hoping she got this love interest this season, who's this other like elf, who's like also really cool. I'm like, oh yay, season 3 they're gonna have little love tryst going on. It's gonna be like, I was gonna say Romeo and Juliet, but they're both women, so like Juliet and Juliet, but badass. I don't know. I'm very excited for season 3 when it comes out.
Hopefully they don't both die at the end.
Oh man, I'll be so sad. Yeah, there was like one episode today that I was watching that was just, the entire episode was just like emotionally draining. And I was like, this is a kid's show. Why am I crying in the first 30 seconds?
I only cry during kids stuff for some reason. I don't know what that's...
Because these kids are watching these things and they're developing their emotions as they watch them. While us, full-fledged, mature adults are like, oh my god.
Like, shit got dark really fast and it stayed dark through the whole episode. And I was... like, they would interlace it with, you know, a cute little dragon hopping around. And I was like, thanks, but I'm still
Just a mess.
Still a mess. Hot mess right now.
Well, that's what I like. I like that they're doing like sort of the Pixar approach in that it's obviously a show for kids, but it'll cater toward it because they know there's more like older crowd that will be watching it. Like that's Netflix's newer Voltron was really good with that, and that wrapped up recently. I'd totally recommend that one if you haven't. I know we've talked about that before, but I've been watching Young Justice too because I had access to a DC Universe account, and that show is surprisingly like for a show that is sort of like beyond the Teen Titans crowd, but obviously not an adult show. Like it does get very heavy, and sometimes you'll get like 4 or 5 like really dark episodes in a row, and then you're like, what the fuck am I watching? Why are these kids dealing with these like really heavy topics? And they're all superheroes. But then that show, I don't want to shit on the animators, but sometimes the characters, when they're like coordinated and doing whatever superheroes do, they sync up over telepathic link, and so none of them move their mouths when they talk. They just have these thought conversations, and I'm like, I bet that helped you get the episode done in half the time.
Yeah.
Ooh, clever.
Yeah. But it's cool. Like, you don't think about it until, like, you actually are like, wait a minute. Like, that makes things way easier.
Yeah.
Well, cool. This isn't an animation podcast, Maddox.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just realized we were talking about it. I could talk about that forever. But that's cool. But yeah, did we have anything else? Is there anything else exciting that you guys have been watching or like excited for before we get into the main event? Any other witchy goings on in either of your worlds?
I mean, Riverdale. But we could have a whole separate podcast about that, so we shouldn't
I'm so like not even caught up. I'm not caught up on Riverdale, and I'm not caught up on Sabrina. I haven't even watched the Christmas Sabrina episode yet.
What?
Yeah.
It's really important for like the rest of the...
Well, they haven't released the rest yet. I'll do it when I'll consider that
do it
the
next
first...
Christmas.
Yeah,
right,
yeah, exactly.
Fine.
Well, yeah, it's like, did either of you guys get to see Anna and the Apocalypse?
No.
That one was really good, but that one, it just came out. You can buy it now, but I would say if you buy it now, don't watch it until next December, because it's a great, depressing Christmas movie to watch around the holidays.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Remind me if you can.
Oh, I'll have a viewing. Definitely
Okay,
have a viewing.
great.
All right. And with that said, let's get into it. We're here to talk about Suspiria, the original from 1977, Dario Argento's classic, and the new one that was put out just this past year. Now, I was really excited for the new one, and I'd seen the original a couple times in college, but honestly, it'd been years since I'd actually sat down and watched it. Like when you guys came over, I had the DVD, but it was still wrapped, so I had to open it up.
And then it ended up not working.
And then it skipped.
And then, yeah, the PlayStation ate the DVD anyway. But let's talk about that. Had you guys seen the original before that night, or was that your first exposure to it?
I had, but it had been a really long time, and I remembered like nothing from it. I think in my brain, all of his movies just sort of blend together, and I remember bits and pieces of them, but that was it.
Same. I was kind of having the same, because I'd seen a lot of his movies like Deep Red, Opera, and it's all sort of the same shit, just rearranged. But like the original Suspiria has its definite own unique look, but it's still just a movie about a bunch of girls getting killed, which is kind of his bag.
Yeah.
What about, had you seen the original before, Chrissy?
Technically, yes, but it was forever ago, and there was like a decent amount of alcohol involved. So watching it this time around did feel like the first time I was seeing it.
Yeah.
Like the only thing I really had in my brain that I like remembered from it was just like, oh, there's a lot of cool like red lighting in that. Like, and other than that, plot wise, I didn't know what was gonna happen, so it was kind of like a fresh eyes situation, I guess.
Well, that's like the original is definitely, it has a crazy insane, like if you're gonna remember anything, remember the crazy insane lighting situation, the wallpaper situation,
right?
Just how how bright the blood is and like how wacky everything is. When we were watching the beginning of the movie, I think I remember saying like a lot of the shit that happens in the beginning of the movie, like the girl getting thrown through the skylight, I thought that was towards the end of the movie. I thought that was like part of the climax.
So did I.
Of the movie.
Yeah.
So things in my head had been completely rearranged, because for the most part, my overall like feeling of rewatching the movie was like it gets really great in the beginning and then it just gets kind of boring.
Yeah.
It just kind of like draws on for way too long. But it's not even that long of a movie. It's still only like an hour and a half.
It felt like a lot longer.
Yeah. But meanwhile, the new one's like 2.5 hours long, almost 3 hours. But now I know I asked you that night, and I kind of want to talk about it again, but did either of you have a background in dancing or like ballet or any sort of thing like that?
I think that's what we talked about. Like, we both did ballet, except like it was a thing that pretty much all people who are our age, like if you were a girl, like you just
did it, no questions asked. Yeah, it was very bizarre. You didn't have to have like an ounce of rhythm in your body. No. Like, it was just what you did. And I did a lot of different dance classes, like all at once. I did tap too, and all of my friends did it also. Like, I didn't really know any girls who weren't in dance. My mom made my little brother take dance. Oh. That's a whole nother. But yeah, it was just a thing. I think the idea is, like, especially ballet, it's a very, like, disciplined art, and they think that you're gonna become more, like, self-disciplined and, like, better behaved because this old lady is, like, yelling at you and smacking you with a yardstick, like, once a week. I don't know, but then everybody pretty much gets thrown out, like, around 6th grade when you get too fat for ballet.
Like, it goes, like, up to a point where it's like, all right, now we're gonna, like, serious
Are there,
ballet.
like, wait, like, me, a complete, like, not even novice, I have no idea, I never did ballet. I'm a really good dancer, but that's because I was born with the rhythm.
That's fair.
So, is it like wrestling, or is it like martial arts? Are there weight classes of ballet? Is there lightweight and then like heavy duty? Like,
no, it's basically just like you are a twig, or you don't do ballet. Which now
you just don't make the cut.
Yeah.
Well, because I can imagine like some of those moves, especially like it always ekes me out when I see them go up on their toes. I was like, if I did that, I would just crumble. Like, I don't think I have the foot dexterity to like.
Oh no, their feet are completely fucked and bloody.
Yeah.
Like, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Like, there's no good way to do it.
Yeah.
I did not experience getting kicked out because I kind of kicked myself out. Like,
see, that's what I did with Boy Scouts. I was just like, fuck this.
I didn't even technically quit because that wasn't like a conversation my mom was willing to have at the time. But I got strep throat every Wednesday for a year when I was 10. Like, magically, I couldn't go to dance. And I think everybody just got sick of fighting, and that's how that went down.
And they were just like, Chrissy, do the pirouette. That's a ballet thing, right? And then you were like, okay, I'll go.
No, I wouldn't go.
Oh, okay.
I faked sick, and everyone believed. I don't know what they thought was going on. They couldn't have believed me, but they just kind of like rolled their eyes, and they were like, okay, I guess you can go home.
She just became a leper. She has to be quarantined.
I don't know.
Only on this day for the period of dance classes, and then she's fine.
It's magic. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I should have thought of that.
I'm still shocked that it worked.
Oh, that's what when I was in high school and we had like really intense gym class, I never had the doctor's note excuse. I'd always just be like, oh, I have a really bad stomach ache. I'm going to go sit in the bathroom on a toilet in a stall for the length of this class.
Yeah. Well, I feel like when you use a poop excuse, especially when you're in school, they're like, nobody wants to this was an all guys high school. So then they're like, you need to document it, you need to measure it, you need to weigh it, you need to provide photo evidence that it occurred.
See, I would always use the period excuse. Like, as long as it was a male teacher and he'd be like, I really need a tampon, they would just be like,
see, now if I said that to the gym teacher, I really need a tampon, he'd be really confused, and I'd already be gone by the time.
You'd still get away with it, though.
Yeah.
That's not a conversation he wants to have.
Yeah.
I just need to. He's like, what? What's going on? It's like, I just need to stop the bleeding. Any more questions? Jesus.
We're providing a lot of really good information about how to get out of gym classes and dance. Man, we got it covered.
We do. We do get this train back on the tracks.
Okay.
So, the original... Both movies sort of deal heavily with... And just to remind everyone, because it's been a while, we're talking about the film Suspiria. Not talking about gym periods.
Tampons,
Suspiria.
none of that stuff.
Both movies are heavily influenced by, the occult and witchcraft and covens and stuff like this. Both of them take place in Berlin, which is interesting, but the funny thing that I noticed after rewatching the newer one is that it actually gets to take advantage of the fact that it's taking place in Berlin. Like, I don't think they actually set the time frame of the original. Like, you don't get, like, a year that the original takes place. But it was made, the movie was produced in 1977. Meanwhile, the new one takes place in Berlin in 1977, which, Berlin 1977, there's a lot of really interesting shit going on. Like, the wall's still there, and, like, they get into the aircraft hijacking, and that's, like, this whole side story. And it's really interesting. Do you guys think that the dichotomy of having a short and sweet, weird, confusing drug trip original Italian version versus the almost 3-hour long one that fits in all that other stuff, like, what do you think are, like, the pluses and minuses of both versions?
I mean, the vibe that I got, especially after watching them back to back, was that it seemed like the newer one, so you watch the first one and it doesn't make complete sense. You don't really have a sense of where you are, what year it is.
Oh, we couldn't tell which girl was which in the beginning.
We couldn't tell which girl was
confused.
which. You just couldn't tell why she was there necessarily. Like, the characters didn't have much of a backstory. So it seemed like the new one was sort of meant to answer maybe all the questions that you had about the first one. It was way too long, but it filled in all of the holes.
The dude just pulled up the script and it was like Swiss cheese and he's filling in the holes
Yeah.
as he goes.
Yeah, like, it kind of answered all the questions that you might have about the first version of the movie, I think.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's, as you're saying that, I remember, like, you get that whole big introduction to the main character, Susie Bannon, in the second one, where you find out that she's from, like, a Quaker colony, or like an
Something
Amish
like
colony,
that.
and her, like, mom, and, like, the whole weird dynamic with her mom kind of hating her, or thinking that she, like, you're not quite sure what's going on there yet, but her mom thinks that she's some sort of, like, monster.
Yeah.
And that's sort of slowly hinted at and built out throughout the movie, through flashbacks and things. None of that is in the first movie. You just have Susie Bannon shows up wet in Germany, and she wants to dance, and suddenly, And
But for me, like, that still, like, annoyed me, because I feel like in the second...
Which one?
In the second movie, they provide more of, like, a background, but it's like they try to do too many things. Like, they try to do the background of the character, they try to do the time period with, like, the wall being up, they try to fill it more with Kevin stuff. And it's like, this would have been so much better if you just picked one thing.
Yeah.
And be like, alright, this is what we're going to build out for this movie. Because I felt like everything was sort of half-assed done. Like, the main character's background...
In both movies, or in
the second one.
Yeah.
Like, they added so much more backstory and world building, but it still didn't make sense when we thought about it. So I was like, great, you guys just added an hour to this, like, runtime, and it still makes no sense to me for why this girl from middle of nowhere in the U.S. is like, I'm gonna go to this fucking dance school in Berlin of all places when they have all this shit going on. I'm gonna go here, and there was only like 20 students, maybe 30 there.
Yeah.
So like, this isn't a major dance place, and we're making fun of their dance performances in the movie because it was like this shitty neighborhood dance place that
they
people
didn't
are
have a
going to for free.
stage.
Yeah. So it's like,
so what wasn't
why?
ballet in the second movie? There's like a few,
Yeah,
we get into
that's
like
true.
differences.
Yeah.
So like, the original was definitely ballet. It was like hard ballet.
Yeah.
The second one was like more of interpretive dance, is what I would call it, kind of. Like very raw, like primal, kind of weird, herky-jerky.
Which makes sense because they're all witches, and so they're literally...
They're making the ritual as they dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, but
Well, towards the end of the
still-
movie when they're putting the gold tape on the ground, it's like, oh, it's just a big fucking pentagram.
Yeah, right.
The second
And also,
one is,
why is no one noticing
Yeah,
that?
the second one is very much on the nose in that I was waiting. We were rewatching the original one, and I was like, when are they going to start talking about, like, we've heard the guy from Goblin, in the song, he says witch. And, like, that's the only real clue you get to it. Because they don't even get to that until they introduce the character of the psychologist, who is, like, a bigger character in the remake, in the new one.
Yeah.
He's literally introduced 3/4 of the way through the movie, and he just gives this
He just
whole
explains
half-hour-long exposition part. He's like, oh yeah, everybody thought it was like an old coven, and she was a witch, and they did, like, crazy shit. And, like, he just tells you all how it is. And then that's kind of, like, rolls into the creepy, weird stuff that happens at the end of that movie. This movie, it's all just out there for you. Just right off the bat, pretty much, you know something weird's happening.
Yeah.
They show you them voting for who's going to lead the coven. They show you, like, the weird stuff where they abduct the detective and play with his dick. Like, they show you, like all the weird, creepy, witchy kind of stuff. And, like, you just know. Like, it's all happening at the same time in parallel to, like, the girl's story, the witch's story. Like, it's all kind of coming to a head. And I thought that was really interesting. The other thing that stuck out, for me at least difference-wise, was that the original movie had dudes as well. Like, you see several dudes, like, tucking plums in their freaking ballet unitards. And in this one, there's no dudes. And you can tell that the witches kind of have that resentment for men, too, because especially when the cops show up, they really just fuck with them.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny.
That was my favorite part of the movie.
But I thought that was, like, an interesting dynamic as well. Are there any other differences that you guys noticed that I might have missed?
Oh, I mean, huge visual difference.
Yeah.
Huge.
The lighting was, like, way different.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the lighting and, like, just the whole overall aesthetic of the first movie is the most important thing about it. So it's kind of strange to me that anybody would remake it in this, like, muted wintry palette with, like, the set was pretty bare bones, you know. I don't know,
I'm assuming they did it deliberately to, like, to just make it, like, separate, but, like, they went too far, I feel like.
In the new one?
Yeah, like, it was so drab and devoid of color that it had to be deliberate.
And the music
absolutely.
was also very muted because they got, what's-his-face, the guy from...
Tom York.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you like Tom York, then you'll love it. If you're someone like me who just wants to jam stuff into their ears whenever Tom York sings, you're going to be like...
He only sings on one of the tracks.
It's true.
The other stuff is more like...
Most of it, like, when he started singing on that first track in the beginning, I was like, oh, fuck.
I hope this
Do I have to listen to it for 2.5
I was
hours?
like, can we put on subtitles and just turn down the music? But, like, he doesn't sing throughout it, so it's not too bad, but...
I think, I agree. I like the crazy color palette and the crazy music of the first one, but I feel like they might have gone for the more muted tones and, like, the more stoic-ish music because of the vibe that they were trying to set, because now they're working with 1977 Berlin and how, like, kind of fucked up it was there, like, politically still at that time. But still, it doesn't really, like you guys were saying, it sort of still pushes that, like, extra stuff further in the movie that wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
Like, it's taking all this real-world stuff in a movie where, especially... We didn't mention it before, but spoilers. We are going to kind of spoil the movie if you haven't seen the new one. The last 20 minutes of the new one is fucking bonkers.
Yeah.
And the CGI and the graphics are so bad.
Right. Like, that was the moment...
Was there CGI?
I guess it's not CGI. I guess they mostly just, like, speed up the...
Oh, the way that they, like, cut... Yeah, they do the frame rate slow... Yeah, that makes it look like it's a shot on someone's handycam.
Yeah. It looked like shit. And I felt like that was, like, their one moment where they were really trying to do a nod to how the original one looked. But it looked awful.
Yeah.
And it's 2017, maybe, at the time. And, like, there's no reason that you can make that red. Like, I think everything went red at the end of the first one.
Yeah, it was really hard to see because, like, there was so much
noisy.
blood and, like, they were doing light. They were kind of doing lighting things.
Yeah.
It was so saturated you could barely see the silhouettes of people.
I mean, there's just no reason why that looks better in 1977 than it does now.
Yeah.
Like, how did you fuck this up? You have so much more technology.
But we don't even see that in the original version. Like, in the original version, the end sort of wraps, like, does she even see any sort of ritual? Not really.
I don't think so.
She just sort of has that freak out at the end and leaves, and then the whole place bursts into flames as she's, like, running away, and that's, like, what we see.
I thought that she went down the hallway and she saw them, and then that's when she gets freaked out and runs back, and she ends up in the room with the coven leader. She sees them doing something that freaks her out.
They were talking about killing her, weren't they?
She's in the room with Mother Marcos.
She's, like,
so in the original, she's, like, invisible.
Yeah.
And then she's in there and she sees, like, her weird invisible silhouette, and everything goes to hell after she stabs her with, like, scissors or something.
Yeah.
And then that's what causes the whole place to explode. Yeah, for some reason, the first one for me still needs some sort of diagram, because, like, it doesn't...
Oh, yeah, it still makes
like,
no sense.
Yeah.
No. But I would still argue that the second one makes no sense, and they added an hour of fucking runtime to it.
I feel like the second one makes more sense to me, just because it's, like, to me, at least, it felt like the witches were clearly using the young female dancers to basically siphon their youth. And they were trying to, like... Because I feel like Mother Marcos at that point was supposed... Because they sort of hint in that one that they've been around for... Like, you can't tell how old the other one is. They're both played by the same woman, because she's a crazy talented actress. But she says, like, oh, yeah, you weren't here 40-some years ago. And you're like, how old are you supposed to be? and they're talking about the war, but you can't tell if they're talking about World War I or World War II, and then it's
Yeah.
like, okay, so...
But I would still argue, like, this is the best idea you guys could come up with, is to run this decrepit school to get 20 random people together, like...
But they need cute, athletic girls to steal their youth from.
It seemed like they were that Mother Marcos was gonna take her body. No?
Is
like
that what it was?
I think
Either her
that's
body
what
or
the
her, like, youth,
ritual
I think.
was.
I think that's what it was supposed to be, yeah. I think they were supposed to take their body. But I couldn't tell if, like, it sounded like only the coven leader got to do that and not the rest of the people in the coven. So I don't know if the rest of the people in the coven just...
Yeah.
age normally, if they did spells to extend their life but not get a new body.
Well, that's why there wasn't, for me, the part in the early-ish to mid-movie in the new one where they're having the vote for Mother Marcos. It doesn't seem like there's that much at stake, and, like, clearly Mother Marcos has been in charge for a longer time, because by the time we see her at the end of the movie and she's just a pile of pig slop, it's like... Clearly
with her
she
hand
needs...
growing out of her,
she's got, like a
shoulder.
baby kind of coming out of her
Yeah.
side, and she's really gross. And, like, the costuming was great. Just in general, the costuming in the movie, I feel like, was really good. But, yeah, I don't feel like there was any... Because the other mother didn't need it. She could still walk the streets and not be thought of as a witch or, like, seen as, like, a monster at all.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, this other one's hiding under the floorboards and having, like, weird orgasm moments with the girl from 50 Shades of Grey.
It was so weird.
Wait, is she from 50 Shades of Grey?
The girl who played
Yeah.
Susie Van in the
Really?
second one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So now we
Not
can talk
familiar.
about...
They just look completely different because...
The hair.
I've never
Yeah.
seen 50 Shades of Grey. Have you seen it?
I watched the CinemaSins for it. They really hate those movies, and it's great.
Oh,
I've
really?
never seen them, but I remember when I found my mom's copy of the book, and she was really embarrassed when I was like, "Are you reading this?" And she's like, "Where did you find that?" But yeah, I don't have any interest to see those movies. She is a pretty decent actress. She was also recently in Bad Times at the El Royale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that movie.
I did love that movie.
Yeah, so she's got a lot going on. But yeah, this movie has a lot going on. It's interesting. I mean, from a point of view, like, I love, like, the imagery. I think the second one ties together better than the first one, narratively at least.
Yeah.
Lies.
But, okay, so this is going to be a little bit off topic from the movies, but if you guys weren't satisfied with the Suspiria films, what are your quintessential witchcraft occult movies?
The Craft.
Yeah, The Craft is
Okay,
great.
The Craft.
Ginger Snaps.
Is that a witch one? I thought that was a werewolf one.
I know, I can't remember. Maybe it is. It's
I
been
think
so long
it's a
since I've
werewolf
seen
one.
it.
She turns into her sister or one of them turns into a werewolf in that
I
one.
thought there were witches in it too. Alright, I could be wrong.
Maybe. I like the witch.
I did not.
I
the
didn't
witch.
like. I thought it was boring.
Yeah.
It's just like boring movies.
I mean,
guess.
like, from, like, a historical perspective, it was kind of interesting. So I was like, this is literally what people, like, when people thought of witches, like, that's literally what they thought.
Yeah.
But it was still boring, and it was still weird, and, yeah.
That's the thing is, I just think in my old age, I think that I'm realizing that I'm starting to like boring ass movies that just go bonkers in the last 20 minutes.
I don't
loved
have the
Hereditary.
attention span
I
for
loved
that.
Suspiria.
Nope.
I like The
Nope.
Witch. Yeah, what about you?
I
are you also a
mean-
vote for The Craft?
I mean, I love The Craft. Yeah, it's funny. I think all of my favorite witch related media is from like when I was a kid. So I really love Hocus Pocus.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Sabrina, Charmed. I
Oh,
love
man.
The
Charmed.
new Charmed is really good.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've only seen the first episode.
You have to get, like, it takes a while.
Okay.
Like, after episode 3, like, alright, they got their...
Yeah.
They got their thing.
I can't think of something that takes witches seriously off the top of my head that I really like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, movie-wise, like, for me, like, there's plenty of video games and
Yeah.
books that do witches and The Witcher.
Yeah,
video
the
game
design of the
series.
witches
Yeah.
and the Witcher were
Like,
really cool.
That is really cool and interesting. But movie-wise, I can't really think of any that are...
The Witches, that one that they
It's
made.
great.
Yeah.
I love that too. But
That was
they're
Roald Dahl,
they're
right? Was it
goofy
after?
as
Yeah.
hell. Like
Yeah.
all of the witches I like are pretty goofy.
Yeah.
I guess. I think my favorite movie witch is actually kind of going back to your recommendations. I really like the witch in Big Fish.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Where you like look in her eyeball, her like glass eyeball, and see how you die or whatever, and all
Oh,
the
man.
little kids are like so interested. That's probably my favorite one.
It's a good one.
But it's kind of goofy in a way too. It's Tim Burton, and it's like very over the top, and the whole scenario of the kids trying to like daring each other to knock on her door is just more lighthearted. So yeah,
there's like witches, and then like I think of Drag Me to Hell, which is more of like a demonic possession curse film. But like I like the character of the cursed gypsy woman, like in that movie. Like she's a perfect witch to me. She's like ugly, but she wants to be nice, but she just wants to live in her life and have her house and do her shit. And like she just gets denied a bank loan, and then it just goes off. It goes to like fucking 11, and that movie's just insane. But like I feel like there is a more goofy aspect to witches and witchery that like does need to be included to make a more successful witchcraft film to a degree, because like I like Suspiria, but like again, all the stuff that they throw in there just to make it even more dark and grim. They're like, the psychologist's wife was killed by Nazis. We are in Germany, aren't we? You can't be in Germany without talking about Nazis. Yeah. And that becomes like a whole thing. And then
I feel like that was kind of tacked on towards the end. Like
that part was kind of cool though. That was like one of the creepy parts is when he has that moment with his wife, and they're having this little romantic walk through the snow, and then he's not even paying attention and doesn't realize that he's been brought back to the ballet studio, and then the two old ladies come out, they're like, oh, like that part is kind of creepy.
But the two old ladies coming out being like, oh, like that kind of ruined the creepiness for me, because I just thought it was funny.
I don't know if you've ever been properly ooh by old ladies.
That's true.
That happens to me.
Yeah.
I've ruined a perfectly good pair of pants that way.
But I wish that they had I wish they had picked like one or two backstory elements of the remake one and focused on that.
They wanted everyone to have like a story.
Yeah, and I was like, it's 2.5 hours and everyone is getting like 30% of the story that they should be getting. Yeah. And so you're just making me have more questions about all of these people.
Well, I was super excited for Chloe Grace Moretz to be in the movie because I love her, and she's been in a bunch of...
She's gone after the first 5 minutes.
She has like that great opening scene, and then she's just gone until the end when she's like naked and dead, and it's just like weird and kind of like she doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you with less backstory for everyone, just on the basis that movie was way too long.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was excited to sit through it again. Like, we did notice a few things. Like, one of you guys spotted that the psychologist's wife was Susie Bannon from the original. That was really cool. I didn't notice that. But you can definitely see it in her face. And I realized that, again, Chloe Grace Moretz, she can basically, at this point, make her career on horror movie remakes. Because she's been in Let Me In, which is a remake of that Swedish Russian.
Let the Right One In.
Let the Right One In, but I can't remember.
I think it's Swedish.
Yeah. She did Carrie, and then now she's doing this one. And I think they're all good in their own right, considering that our remakes are usually garbage. But yeah, for as far as a remake goes, I feel like it's different enough that we probably shouldn't even call it a remake. Do you guys think it's like a proper remake, or do you think it's kind of its own thing, the new Suspiria?
Well, so this is where my fun facts
come in. Yes, start breaking out the
notes. Everyone, I have notes because I read both Wikipedia pages, so everything I'm saying might be true. So, getting my notes.
Shuffling all the notes to make sure. They're actually here. It's an audio medium.
No, I did read something about how the director of the new movie said that this movie was an homage and not a remake. That's what he said, at least. But I don't know if that was just him backpedaling after the fact or, what the deal was, but yeah.
Well, I heard Argento was very unhappy with the new one.
Yes, I read that too. So that might have been a response to that.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't need to...
Yeah, I'm not sure what the timeline on all these statements are necessarily. But I also think that, how is it an homage if you are using the same exact storyline and you just expanded it?
I don't even know. I don't even know if I would call it even the same exact. It's almost like there's a.
If you're taking the really basic elements of it, it's a bunch of girls who go to a dance school that's run by witches, and that's same in both of them. It's set in the same place. You still have the American girl who ends up there as the main character.
And her name is the same.
Yeah.
I think all the characters' names are the same.
Yeah, changing it from
ish
ballet to interpretive dance doesn't make it different enough.
No. I think there's just a fine so it is definitely the same-ish movie. I feel like what I'm saying is I feel like it's different enough to be its own thing, like homage or not. I feel like taking that way of saying Girls at a Dance Academy that winds up being a witch coven is essentially the same movie as if we said that X-Men and Harry Potter were the same movie. You take people
Those
with...
are fighting.
What? Are you kidding me right now?
You just take kids with special abilities and put them in a school.
There's a difference between X-Men and magic. Like, no.
There's a difference between ballet and interpretive dance.
You didn't even do ballet.
I did so much ballet.
No, you didn't.
Just in your own time?
Yeah, I did private ballet. So, yes, sorry to interrupt your notes.
No, I mean, I have other notes. That was the only note I have about that. Yeah, he said it was an homage. I don't really buy that. I think it was a little damage control that he was trying to do after the bad
Sorry, I've
reviews.
upset the maestro.
Yeah. Because I just feel like if you were going to do an homage to Suspiria, you would do a totally different movie. Maybe I'm just stuck on the visual aspect of it, but you would do a totally different movie with a different plot that is like aesthetically similar to Suspiria. If that's what I would do. That's what I'm going to do in my movie.
So Girls in a Dance Academy that's also a coven, but it takes place in Brooklyn, and it's about, like, Stomp the Yard style dancing, and it's more, like, urban and...
No. Like,
Americanized.
That would have been more interesting than the remake.
It would. It would be good, but... No, like, completely different story. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a full-on horror movie. It could be anything.
Yeah, because the original wasn't really a full-on horror movie. I mean, probably at the time it was, but like we watch it and it's just like,
right.
Yeah, so
weird.
This is weird.
Yeah, like that's the kind of movie you just like smoke a little weed and then you sit
now,
back
like
and...
thinking about the first movie, like I can't even remember why was that one dude murdering the students in the beginning. I don't even remember the reason for that.
So in the beginning,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, remember there was
and then
like,
the dude
I completely forgot.
Well, yeah, the first one has like weird like storylines, like the blind guy who plays the piano, who has the dog that kills him. Like that never really comes, but like they bewitch the dog to eat him somehow.
Yeah,
I guess that's like a really interesting
That's the vibe
scene.
that I got. Yeah.
Yeah,
which I actually thought that was cool and like one of like the creepy parts of the movie. But.
Yeah.
But they take out the blind piano player and they replace him with the big statuesque black woman who just plays tapes on a boombox.
Oh, and there was like,
and like
she
she's like
she was one of the witches. Too.
Yeah,
so, like
yeah.
she wasn't even like there was no outside employees in the
that's-
remake versus the first one.
That's the thing that I couldn't really figure out. For the most part, in the first one, it's very obvious that most of the girls or most of the people in the academy aren't really aware of what's going on when it comes to the witches. But by the end of the second one, like the new one, it just seems like everybody's in on it.
I thought they were all bewitched.
Yeah, it was unclear.
They were all
to
under
me.
a spell of some kind.
Yeah, that's what it kind of seemed like.
I could see that. Yeah.
When they all go out to dinner, like all the witches make uncomfortably long eye contact with all of their students.
Yeah.
So I
there
thought
is
it
that.
was implied that they did something during that dinner.
And they were all of a
basically-
sudden like wasted.
Yeah.
Seemingly wasted.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
But then they're all sort of like uncomfortably close, and you can't really tell what's going. Like the only Susie Bannon addresses it at that one point when suddenly they start talking French. Like, and you notice the subtitles start changing colors between when they're speaking German or French. Because then they decide to speak French, which is a Romance language, and then they're in love or something, and that's kind of addressed at one point.
I just thought it was weird that Susie Bannon was able to pick up so many languages so quickly.
I knew there was something weird. Like, the first
Yeah.
time I watched it, I was like, there's something weird about this girl. And then at the end, spoilers again, you find out she's the embodiment of Mother Suspiria.
Yeah, but they never made it clear if she always was,
Right.
or if
She
So
was
that's-
something was in her body.
Well, that's what I'm assuming ties back to the mother being like, she's my, what she says, she's my smear on the world.
Yeah.
So she
Yeah.
keeps talking about her like she's some sort of monster. Like the mom knew that there was something wrong with her, so maybe she was
Always.
possessed or always kind of
which to
potential
me,
to be
it's still
corrupted.
just, I guess maybe it was the potential, but I'm like, it wouldn't make sense for the entire time for this super powerful demon thing just to be chilling in this
Quaking with the
girl,
Quakers.
like growing up in the middle. Like, what is it doing for 20 fucking years?
Right.
It's like, all right, this is cool. We're gonna go milk a goat. Sweet. Like that doesn't make
No.
any sense. And her reaction to all the things wouldn't have made sense. So I'm assuming that for undisclosed reasons, she becomes the vessel for this being afterwards and is going forward. Like, I'm assuming that she doesn't go back to being like normal Susie afterwards. So it was like, did she just lose her soul? Like,
but it could be something, because then the other mother talks a few times about how she's communicating or like feeding her ideas through her dreams, and there's those weird montages of like the creepy music video kind of Nine Inch Nails shit that flashes through her dreams, and like she constantly wakes up screaming. And
I thought that was because they're getting her ready to be the vessel for the other.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Okay.
Because they were saying like that's what drove the other one insane.
Yeah.
Is like doing, for some reason they had to do the weird music video nightmare thing, and that drove the other one insane. They were like grooming
her.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a possibility that Susie's mother is obviously very religious, and it seems like maybe it doesn't take much for her to think that her daughter is a smear on the world. So maybe Susie is just kind of innately rebellious and easily influenced, and that's what makes her mother think that she's a smear on the world, and then makes her like a good vessel for this thing, because she's just kind of like impressionable and doesn't really have her own moral compass, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so she's kind of like the first season of Breaking Amish, basically. She's just sort of like, she goes, Berlin is the big city, and she goes and she's just like, I'm going to do whatever I want.
Right.
Mom's dead, whatever, I can do whatever I want.
Right. Like, I don't know.
Well, because there's that other weird scene, because like the flashbacks are dealt with, like they're peppered throughout, and they're like kind of only there to like remind you of kind of what's going on. And there's that one part where it's implied that she got caught masturbating in the closet that one time.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, like there's a lot of weird moments like that where it's like, that's what I appreciate about this movie, is that it implies a lot of things, like heavily implies a lot of things, but then there's stuff like that where it's not in your face. It very much could have been more graphic, but it wasn't. So at least it did that. But then towards the end, where it's just like, oh, whatever, just explode a bunch of heads and.
Yeah, I still stand by my thing of like, yeah, you presented us with a lot of backstory, but it still doesn't make sense.
Oh no, yeah, I'm not saying it makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm saying there's more narrative there to fill in holes, but like the holes are still there.
The holes made me angrier.
There's just more holes.
Angry holes.
Like they took a character who was literally like the exposition guy in the first one, and then he's like one of the main characters in this movie. Essentially, the psychologist.
Oh, yeah. Right, because they introduce him in the very beginning.
And he has his own like whole thing going on.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. And he's pretty much, there's the detectives. I was like, he's the only man in the movie, but there's a few other men. Yeah, I don't know. I like both movies. I do like the new one better, but I don't know. I know the original was part of, Dario Argento had a trilogy of movies that he called the Three Mothers trilogy, because I guess the idea of Mother Suspirium and Mother...
the other two.
The other two.
Mother 1 and 2.
Comes back, and I don't think I've seen any of those other, like the original movies, the other ones that are in that trilogy, but do you guys think they would remake those two too? Do you think it would make any sense to do that? Could you see this movie connecting to another movie in any way? Like, would you follow the continuing adventures of 50 Shades of Suspirium?
I think that I would, just because I have a lot of questions. I don't think that they'll actually do it, because I think when the person who originally made the movie tells you that you suck, you're probably going to stop, I would think. So I can't see anybody wanting to take that on.
Well, that's like, I don't think, they probably wouldn't have the same director. I don't think it would be, I think it would probably be different, because I was surprised to find out that the new one was an Amazon production. So it was done under like the Amazon studio, bannerhead and what have you. So I wouldn't be surprised if Amazon's like, hey, let's just remake these other two movies. I can't even remember which ones they were, because I've only seen...
Opera is the only one I remember.
Opera,
I don't
Deep Red.
think that's part of the trilogy thing.
These movies were so weird. I remember there was one that literally ends, and it might be... Is it Opera that ends on like a lizard on a blade of grass? And it sits there for like almost 5 minutes just watching the lizard get blown off the blade of grass. It's such a weird... And that's just it. You don't know what happens. It's implied that maybe the girl dies, but it's just... Yeah, I don't know.
I think the only way these movies could be cool is if they were made into a series, which Amazon could do.
Yeah.
And that could be interesting if they really did more homage or lighter interpretation of them and like mix them together. So like you have the weird fucking ballet school run by witches, you have the weird fucking opera thing going on. Like you literally have
so it's like a Castle Rock type situation.
Oh, they make like a Dario Argento
yeah,
universe show. That would
like,
be cool.
Mix up like
Yeah,
all of his
really
different
cool.
movies and just be like, man, this town is fucking weird.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
You know?
Italy's just
I could get
weird.
down with that.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
because they're already weird in general. Anyways, yeah, that to me that would be the only thing that could be cool is if they did
That
a
would
TV
be cool.
series
I'd
and
watch
just
that.
embrace the weirdness of it all.
Embrace the weirdness of ballet witches.
I mean, here's a question.
Mm.
I'm sure you guys kind of went into this the same way I did. I think, we all kind of felt like when we watched the original this last time, it was kind of like the first time. We didn't have enough memory of it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you also know a lot of people who just live and die by this movie. Like, it's such a beloved cult hit that...
Oh yeah, I mean, in
Yes.
college when it was introduced to me, everybody's like, "Oh, it's so
Right.
weird," and like, yeah.
Right. And that said, do you feel like it deserves that distinction? And what do you think it is about it? If you know what I mean? Like, I felt like when I was watching it, I was sort of like, oh, so this is it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I could see, because it's Dario Argento, and he made a lot of movies that were very similar, but Suspiria is definitely probably the best of his very similar movies. Mm-hmm. And of that era of movies that were made in like the 70s, 80s, a lot of people were influenced by his work when he played with like light and like setting and stuff like that. So I think that a lot of people looked at kind of feigning elegance, but also very trashy. But the execution of it is actually really sophisticated, and that the lighting's really cool, and like even though it's corny looking, it's still really well done. The dubbing is really bad. The sound work is
so
really
bad.
strange. Like sometimes you can tell they recorded in the same space. Sometimes you can tell they redubbed it later on in like a completely different sound atmosphere. But then all the sets were incredible, like all the different, like we were joking around about the wallpaper earlier, but really like every room in that movie is just crazy. Mm-hmm. So I think it definitely has its praise. It's definitely worthy of that, and the music's incredible. Like, that band has come to town a couple times and actually performed the entire score live while the movie plays. And I can't remember if they did it either at the Somerville Theater or the Coolidge. I can't remember where they did it, but that I would totally be down to like see or like experience that sort of thing, even though I feel like I'm fine to not watch the original Suspiria for a while now. Like the second one I was excited to watch again, even though I'd seen it like the week before. Like I watched it, told you guys I wanted to do this episode, and then I was like perfectly fine to watch it again. Usually if I watch a movie like that that's almost 3 hours long, it's going to be a year before I want to watch it again. But I did really enjoy watching it again. I could watch it again right now. Like, I really like the movie. Like, it's not my top 10 favorite movie, but, like, I thought I was really happy with it. I think there's a place for both, but I think it only gets that praise because of the time. He was one of the dudes in that giallo, the Italian horror genre, to, like, really step forward and kind of make it his own and, like, make his different. Mm-hmm. And then other people started to try to do that with like other movies.
Yeah.
I guess my question for the original would be, and this can be applied to other movies I'm not thinking of, is what made the original Suspiria so interesting, like, was the lighting and the set design and all that. The lighting in some of the scenes, even if it was like a 5-second scene of her in the cab right in the beginning, was like insane.
Really cool. Really
like, and I mean, probably easily half the people who watch this movie don't even notice it, but the people who know anything about lighting are like, oh my god, that is phenomenal. But like, all that said, the plot is terrible. The characters are all boring and terrible. So is there any reason to remake movies where what made them so interesting and special was that particular director's lighting and aesthetics and set design,
and the fact that it had never been done before?
Because now if you remake it, like, you're just copying what another artist did.
Right.
And there's better stories to be retold, or you could tell them in a more interesting way, to the point where, like, it's not really a remake, it's
It's its own, yeah. I feel like, looking at it that way, I feel like the original is a movie that has some sort of narrative, but really, when you break it down, it's just sort of punctuated by all these really cool looking moments, or like really well executed, like the scene where she drops out of the skylight and then the other girl gets killed by the shattered glass. It's really elegant and creepy and weird and super 80s, 70s, 80s. The vibe is like perfect, but then it's like, okay, well, we don't really care about anything until like something like that happens again. The only reason people sat in the theater was through all the boring parts was like, we know somebody else is going to get killed. We know something else creepy is going to happen. So I feel like then this guy or whoever decided to remake it was like, okay, well, let's just make a movie where it's a lot of stuff. You don't have to wait between punctuated moments in the movie. Like, it's just, you're going to constantly have to keep track of like characters, what's happening, like the political environment at the time.
There's
like
so much,
like all these different things that you can't tell, like half of which don't even matter. Yeah, I feel like the original didn't have enough in it, and the new one has way too much in it, and both of them still kind of suffer from the same, like, what actually happened? What are we actually... Why did we watch this? What's actually happening? But yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. It's just like, it's a lot of build-up, you know? It's, if you're a person who's into horror and you have friends who are into horror and you happen to, like, just sleep on one classic in particular, it's like years of build-up, you know? So, I think maybe that's part of why I and maybe Maddox received it the way that we did, because it's like years and years of people being like, this is one of my favorite movies. So given that, I thought that I would like it more than I did. It has its merits, like you guys have been saying, like it's visually incredible, but I think it's definitely the type of movie that I don't think you can just bring anybody to see it and they're going to be into it. I think you have to be a hardcore horror fan and you have to know why it's important in the larger context of horror, or you have to be into photography or video or design or something like that so that all of the visual elements matter to you. It's just very specific, and I kind of, in my Wikipedia, while I was in my Wikipedia rabbit hole about this, I did read a lot of things that made me appreciate the original more than I did before I really knew anything about the inspiration and ideas behind it. But I guess what Dario Argento's vision for it was that he wanted to make it look like Disney's Snow White.
Yeah.
And Susie Bannon was supposed to be a Snow White character. And a lot of the scale of the set, like the huge doors and things like that.
They're supposed to make her look like a child almost.
Well, it was inspired by Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, okay.
Is like where he got that from. So a lot of it is like he took a lot of fairy tale elements and made it creepy, which I can appreciate. And yeah, the story behind like the thought process is also interesting, but I don't think it's something you can go into blind and just like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I sort of had the same exposure to it when I was in college, because my friend at the time was very much into just horror in general, and she's like, oh, Dario Argento, we gotta watch all those movies, and she introduced us to Suspiria as the first one, and it's clear like that would be the one that would stick out, that would be the one that would get remade like all these years later. And I watched it and I sort of remember being like, oh, weird. And then we watched some of his other ones and I was like, oh, that's what this guy does.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to say he's a one-trick pony, but he's got a handful of different things that he does, but he does them well. But the other thing is, like, if they did remake the other two movies in this trilogy that he claims he has, I didn't even realize that he was still alive. I thought
really?
Yeah, I thought he was older. Like, I thought he was older. I thought he had passed. I thought I'd remember hearing that he'd passed or something. But one of his last movies that he made, that was actually the third one in the trilogy, was only just made in 2007, I think.
Oh.
So, like, it still would be weird if we've gotten to that point where they are remaking, like, movies that are made in 2007. Even though it's technically, like, it's been, 12 years?
I mean, they've already been doing that.
Yeah.
They've remade so many horror movies that were like Cabin Fever, I think got remade, and
Yeah.
something else, and I was like,
It's not a remake, it's a
This just
reboot.
happened.
It's different, it's a reboot.
no, it's the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
No, there's whole other podcasts about how shitty reboots and remakes are. We don't have to be one of those podcasts. It's okay.
It's okay. That is what this whole thing is about, though.
Kind of, yeah.
It is mostly me shitting on stuff. Like, every
Yeah.
time I'm on here, I just, like, shit all over
That would be a
things.
completely different podcast, and people would probably have to pay for it.
That's true. And it would really need to be visual. Like, it couldn't really be a podcast.
Yeah, you'd have your own website at that
Yeah.
point. Yeah. Maddoxshitsonstuff.com. Sign up for your subscription today. Oh, God. Yeah, this train went off the tracks again.
It usually does. It's fine.
It's the Bud Light Limes. That's what did it.
Going straight to our heads.
Yeah, never again. Jesus. I don't have scurvy anymore, but I'm talking about people shitting on the internet.
It tastes like somebody melted a freeze pop and just like dumped it into my beer.
It tastes like somebody who's been sucking on limes for 30 years of their lives peed in a bottle. And left it in the fridge.
You're done with yours. Why did you do this to me?
Yeah. Still got a quarter to go.
It's okay, you're almost there. Everybody knows the bottom of a bottle of Bud Light is the best part.
Oh.
Thank you for the sponsorship, Bud Light. We really appreciate it. Okay, guys, last remarks, winding down, any last impressions of the films? I know you guys loved them so hard.
I hated the second one so much.
So you preferred the first one, you didn't like it that much, but you prefer it over the second one.
Yes.
I think Dahlia agrees with you.
Yeah, Talia always agrees with me. She knows where her
She
food
has
comes
to.
from.
She has to.
All right, Chrissy, how about you?
I think that there could be a perfect movie in there somewhere if you fused the right parts of both of them.
Okay, so you can Franken movie a perfect Suspiria
Yes,
out of both of them.
I think that it's there somewhere, but it obviously it doesn't exist now. Yeah, so that would be my critique overall. Is that I think they were both missing something, and I think the original had what the new one was missing, and vice versa.
Okay, so you're saying that in the year 2038,
I'm going to remake Suspiria.
they need to come out with the 4-hour master Chrissy cut
Yes, exactly.
that combines both. Okay, I can appreciate that. I'll be the first in line to buy the ticket for that one.
Oh no, you're on the crew.
Man.
Obviously, you're gonna be Susie.
Oh,
That
I
makes
wanted
sense.
to be Susie.
You've been practicing ballet in your room all your life for this moment.
It's true. It's true. When I talk to clients at work over the phone, they always like, "Really, your name's Annie? You sound like a Susie." All right, great. Well, thank you guys for putting up with me for the last however long we've been talking, and setting some time aside to have this discussion about these movies, whether you liked them or not. I appreciate the feedback, and I appreciate your opinions to a point.
Fair enough.
In fact, that was directed at me.
But yeah, again, thanks so much for tuning in to Fear Boners. And we have our special guests, Chrissy and Maddox, the witches from Salem, who aren't really from Salem, but they're probably running a ballet studio out in Salem that they're not telling anybody about.
I fucking am now.
Well, if that's the case, let these fine people listening know where they can find out more about you if they want to stalk you online or sign up for your ballet classes. Maddox?
So I have two. I have one that's perpetually lost photography that I am not going to spell. You can figure out how to
Dictionary
perpetually,
spelling,
yeah.
it's fine.
That is on Instagram, and then I also have shutter.siren on Instagram. That's mostly where I'm active these days on the social medias, although I might start trolling Twitter just to, like, at you regarding how much I hate this movie.
Well, like a lot of your stuff more recently has been some of your burlesque photography.
That is
now,
true.
let me spin this one for you. Let me spin this yarn. What if we had a Kickstarter or something to fund our own remake of Suspiria, but it's not a ballet or interpretive dance, it's a burlesque troupe Suspiria.
I mean, that I would definitely
That'd
get
be cool.
behind.
A witchy burlesque troupe, that would be pretty dope.
Yes, I mean, anything that involves, like, burlesque and witches and ridiculous amounts of blood, I would be all over. And flaccid penises, exactly like from the movie.
It has to be exactly like the one in the movie.
So there's a troupe that I follow on Instagram. I think they're out of the Detroit area, and they do everything. This cool show every Halloween that's apparently called the Theater Bazaar, and it's all like creepy, and like the head of it is this guy named Zombo. He's a zombie clown, and like it's always gory and weird and creepy, and like I'm always watching it on Instagram, and it would be cool if we went to Detroit and watched that.
That sounds pretty
and then got abducted by witches.
Even better. I would love to meet some Detroit witches.
Oh my god.
I actually have friends out there we could probably crash with. Cool. And what about you, Chrissy? Where can these people find out more about you?
In a lot of places, I guess.
The phone book?
I'm in the phone book. So I'm a photographer also, and my Instagram is the letters L and C kites, as in kites.
LC kites, not LNC kites, right?
Yes. Letters LC kites.
Sounded like you put an N in there.
I did. I said an L and a C.
No, I know.
I was spelling it out like a cheerleader, like, give me an L. Yeah.
Everyone is following this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I figure if I talk long enough, by the end of it, they'll have found me.
Oh, we get paid by the word on this podcast.
Great.
Sweet.
Good to know. I'm going to keep it going then. So yeah, LC Kites Photo on Instagram. My website, I'm doing all kinds of weird rebranding where I'm changing my name 1,000 times.
Ooh, okay.
Basically what happened was I just wanted to be more hidden because I was teaching for a while, and I didn't want my little friends finding me on social media, because that's all they want to do is find their teachers on social media and like see what they're up to, and I was not having it. But I'm not teaching anymore, so I'm reverting back to using my name.
Screw those kids.
Yeah, I'm like, well, they're all in college now. It's fine.
So it's fine.
Yeah. So my website is actually chrissykites.com. And yeah, I think that's...
If anybody has any weddings
if you're getting hitched anytime soon, hit me up.
Hitched or ditched?
Hitched or ditched. I can do divorces too.
Yeah.
Different kind of ditch.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Haven't loved that joke, everybody.
Oh man. Too many Bud Light Limes.
I'll go right to your head,
Definitely don't
man.
have scurvy.
Oh no.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Dahlia, to being a real champ and not barking or farting or doing anything that dogs do.
She barely thumped her tail.
It's true. Mm-hmm. She's been good. She's, those tranks really work to charm. And yes, thank you so much to tuning in, our regular listeners, and thank you to our brand new listeners, whoever you are out there on the internet. This has been Fear Boners, presented by the Down in Front podcast. I am your host, Andrew. I'm here with Chrissy and Maddox, and we will be back soon to bitch about some other movie that we may or may not like. And if you like what you've heard, you can find more over on downinfrontpodcast.com. We also have a Facebook page over on facebook.com/downinfrontpodcast. You can also email the Down in Front guys directly at thecrew@downinfrontpodcast.com. We also have a YouTube channel where we post some of our video teasers as well as full episodes. You can look for us on there. We also have the Gamescast over on Twitch, where sometimes you'll see Bryland or maybe Warren and myself playing some Monster Hunter or Spider-Man or what have you, just shooting the shit. You can find that over at twitch.tv/downinfrontpodcast. We also have an Instagram where we post a lot of the art from our episodes, the title pages, as well as links directly to the episodes. You can follow us there to keep you up to date. All of these places, as well as Twitter at _DIFP or at FearBonersDIFP. We will constantly keep you updated with new content when we release new things. Or you can also go back and look at our back catalog. We're well over 100 episodes at this point, so there's so much listening for you. If it's a new movie, if it's an old movie, classic movie, we have an episode for you at this point that you're probably going to want to listen to if you haven't already heard it. And also, you guys have heard me say this a few times already, but it goes without saying, we love you. We love having this ongoing conversation, and we do it absolutely for free. But if for any reason you feel like you'd love to contribute and help us make sure that we get this content out to you on time, then take a look over at Patreon at patreon.com Down in Front Podcast, you can potentially sign up to dedicate $1, $5 a month, what have you. Even $1 helps. Like an Arizona iced tea, the price is on the can. Every little bit helps us to get this content out to you on time, fresh, and delivered to your ears, whether it be on your lunch break, on your commute to work, from work, what have you. We'd love to have you listen to us wherever you are, even if it's on the toilet. That doesn't bother us. Just don't tell us about it. So anyway, thanks again for listening. We'll be back sooner rather than later. And as always, keep it creepy and stay spooky, dear listeners.